We thought it was the end of the road, their love story, collapsing under the weight of a decade of pressure. We saw the tears. We felt the anguish. Jenny packing her bags, her American dream in India turning into a recurring nightmare. Sumit, torn between the woman he loved and the family he couldn't leave, his face a mask of desperation. It was the climax we had all been dreading and, let's be honest, waiting for. The final explosive confrontation that seemed to signal the definitive end of one of 90 Day Fiancé's most enduring and most frustrating sagas. We thought it was real. We believed in their pain. But what if the tears were just a pitch for another season? What if the heartbreak was just a business meeting? What you are about to hear is an exclusive deep dive into what we believe is the biggest deception in 90 Day Fiancé history. We've been following the breadcrumbs, connecting the dots, and what we've uncovered will change the way you see this couple, and perhaps the entire franchise, forever. If you believe in holding reality TV accountable and aren't afraid to look behind the curtain, then hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and like this video. You're not going to want to miss a single second of this. To understand the magnitude of this deception, we have to go back, not just to the fight itself, but to the very beginning. We have to re-examine the entire 10-year narrative of Sumit and Jenny, but this time, we're not looking at it as a love story. We are looking at it as a product, a carefully constructed storyline sold to us season after season. Remember the beginning? The hook was irresistible. A sweet, retired American woman, Jenny, falls for a younger Indian man, Sumit, who catfished her using a different man's photos. Right from the start, the story was built on a foundation of deception. We forgave it, chalking it up to insecurity and the strangeness of online dating. We saw it as the first hurdle they had to overcome. But what if it wasn't a hurdle? What if it was the premise? What if it was the pilot episode of their long-running show, establishing the central theme? Things are not what they seem. They milked that initial deception for an entire season. The reveal, the forgiveness, Jenny's brave decision to uproot her life and move to India anyway. It was compelling television. We were invested. Then came the next big twist, the one that would define their narrative for years to come. Sumit was already married. An arranged marriage, he claimed, one he was trapped in. This wasn't just a lie. It was a bombshell that created the perfect engine for perpetual drama. Suddenly, Jenny wasn't just a woman in love. She was the other woman, an unwitting homewrecker in a deeply conservative culture. And Sumit wasn't just a guy with a secret. He was a tragic hero, a man caught between love and duty, modernity and tradition. This secret marriage storyline wasn't just a plot point, it was a gold mine. It gave the producers an endless source of conflict. The stakes were incredibly high. Would Sumit get his divorce? How much would it cost? Would his family ever forgive him? Would Jenny's visa run out before he was free? For multiple seasons, this was the entire show for them. Every scene was a variation on this theme. We saw Jenny, isolated and lonely in their small Indian apartment, waiting. We saw Sumit, sneaking around, having hushed, tense phone calls. And we saw the true antagonists of the series emerge. Sumit's parents, Anil and Sahna. His parents became the perfect reality TV villains. They were unrelenting, dramatic, and their disapproval was the wall against which Sumit and Jenny repeatedly threw themselves. We watched Sana threaten to end her own life. We watched them disown their son. We watched them ambush Jenny at her own home, screaming, crying, and creating scenes so dramatic they felt scripted. And maybe they were. Think about it. How many times can a son defy his parents before they either accept the situation or truly cut him off? In the world of 90 Day Fiancé, the answer is as many times as the contract requires. Their conflict never resolved because a resolved conflict is a canceled storyline. The parental disapproval wasn't just a family issue. It was the series' main source of fuel. It was their B plot, their C plot, and their A plot, all rolled into one. Finally, after years of legal battles, clandestine meetings, and endless tears, the divorce came through. Sumit was free. This should have been the happy ending, the culmination of their journey. They could finally get married. But a funny thing happens in reality TV when the central conflict is resolved. The story becomes boring. And a boring story doesn't get renewed. So, a new obstacle had to be manufactured. Suddenly, despite being a grown man in his 30s, Sumit was terrified of marrying Jenny without his parents' blessing. The same parents who had already disowned him. The same parents whose approval he had decided to live without for years. The logic began to fall apart for many viewers. Why, after everything they had been through, was this suddenly the insurmountable hurdle? He had lied about his identity. He had lied about his first marriage. He had chosen Jenny over his family's wishes time and time again. But now the simple act of signing a marriage certificate was a bridge too far. It felt thin. It felt repetitive. It felt like the writer's room was running out of ideas. The storyline shifted from, can Sumit get a divorce, to will Sumit defy his parents again? It was the same conflict, just repackaged. And so, we got another season of the same old drama. The astrologer's dire warnings, the family therapist who conveniently made house calls with a camera crew, the awkward staged meetings where Sumit would beg for his parents' permission and they would, predictably, refuse. The tension was supposed to be palpable, but it was starting to feel predictable. Their screen time became a loop of Jenny's frustration and Sumit's indecision. The audience's patience was wearing thin. Comments online reflected a growing sentiment. Either get married or break up. We're tired of this. The magic was fading. The product was becoming stale. They eventually did get married, in secret. Another deception. Another secret kept from his parents. It was a beautiful, quiet ceremony. For a moment, it felt like a victory. But it was a victory that once again threatened their entire career. The chase was over. The goal had been achieved. Now what? The big reveal to the parents was, of course, explosive. More screaming, more crying, more disowning. But after the dust settled, where was the story supposed to go? Sumit and Jenny, a married couple, living in India, dealing with disapproving in-laws. It's a story, sure, but is it a 90-day fiancé, happily ever after story? Is it a story that can carry another 14 episodes? This is the critical point. This is where the pressure from the network would have been at its highest. The couple and their producers faced a classic narrative dead end. The will they, won't they was gone. The primary antagonists, the parents, had played their final card, disownment. What else was there to do? Show them bickering about groceries? Watch Jenny learn to cook a new dish? The stakes had evaporated. Their storyline, which had once been a high-wire act of international romance and family betrayal, had flatlined into a domestic drama with no discernible conflict. They were on the chopping block. They were at risk of being replaced by a younger, more chaotic couple. They needed something big. They needed a cliffhanger. They needed to prove that they still had ratings potential. They needed a breakup. And that brings us to the evidence. For weeks, rumors have been swirling in the deep corners of 90-Day Fiancé fan forums and social media. Whispers from people claiming to have connections to the production. The kind of whispers that are usually dismissed as fan fiction. But then, something more concrete emerged. A series of screenshots, allegedly from a text message exchange. The source is anonymous, claiming to be a disgruntled, low-level production assistant who felt guilty about the level of manipulation they were witnessing. We cannot, of course, verify the identity of this source, but the content of these messages is so specific, so damning, and aligns so perfectly with what we saw on screen that it demands our attention. We are not presenting these as gospel truth, but as a piece of evidence in a very compelling theory. We are presenting them as the insider report that cracks the whole case wide open. Let's break down the exchange. The first message is allegedly from Sumit. The contact name is simply S. The recipient is unnamed, but the context implies it's a producer or a handler for the show. The text reads, "We can do the big fight next week. Jenny will pack her bags. It will be very emotional. Let's stop there and analyze this. We can do the big fight next week. This isn't the language of a man in emotional distress. This isn't the language of a relationship on the rocks. This is the language of scheduling. This is the language of production. The use of we implies collaboration. This isn't something happening to them. It's something they are doing. The big fight suggests this is a planned, tentpole event, a set piece for the season finale. It has a title. Then the next sentence, Jenny will pack her bags. Again, this is not a prediction of a possible outcome. It's a stage direction. It's a plot point that has already been agreed upon. It outlines a specific action that will provide the visual drama for the scene. The final sentence, it will be very emotional, is perhaps the most chilling part. It's a promise of a performance. He's not saying, I'm worried it will be emotional. He's guaranteeing the quality of the product. He's telling the producer, don't worry, we will deliver the tears and the drama you need for your show. It's an actor assuring a director he can hit his mark. The text that follows this one is the smoking gun. It removes all ambiguity. After promising the emotional performance, Sumit allegedly asks a direct business-related question. Is this enough for a happily ever after renewal? There it is, the motive. The entire reason for the charade laid bare in a single devastating question. The fight, the tears, the packing of the bags wasn't about their relationship's crisis. It was about their professional one. It was a performance review. It was an audition for their next contract. They were pitching a storyline. The breakup wasn't an ending. It was a pilot for a season that would presumably follow their dramatic reconciliation. He is literally asking his boss if the planned performance is sufficient to guarantee their continued employment. This reframes everything. Every tear Jenny shed, every pained expression on Sumit's face becomes part of a calculated effort to secure a paycheck. The alleged reply from the producer is just as revealing in its cynical brevity. The producer, labeled only as TLC prod in the screenshots, simply writes back, "Sounds great. Make it big." Two short sentences that speak volumes. Sounds great. There is no concern for their well-being. No. Are you guys sure about this? No inquiry into their actual emotional state. Just a simple transactional approval of the proposed scene. It's the green light for a production. Then the final instruction. Make it big. This is the director's note. It's a command to amplify the drama, to exaggerate the emotions, to push the performance to its limits for the sake of the cameras. Don't just have a fight, have an epic season-ending blowout. Don't just pack a bag, pack all the bags. Make the audience believe it's truly over. The bigger the drama, the bigger the ratings. The bigger the ratings, the easier it is to justify a renewal. It's a cold, hard business calculation. Now, with these alleged texts as our lens, let's go back and rewatch that big breakup scene. Suddenly, it looks very different. The fight centered on Sumit's desire to work and live in India, while Jenny longed to be able to travel back to the US to see her family without jeopardizing her Indian residency status. On the surface, it's a legitimate conflict for a cross-cultural couple, but watch how it escalates. Sumit's frustration seems to come out of nowhere, his anger dialed up to 11. He shouts that he's done with this. Jenny's crying, which has always been a staple of their storyline, feels almost on cue. It's a masterful performance of despair. She talks about giving up her whole life, her social security, her family, all the talking points that have defined her character arc for years. It's a greatest hits of her suffering, packaged perfectly for a dramatic montage. Consider the staging. Jenny is packing her bags in the bedroom, the camera getting tight shots of her throwing her clothes into a suitcase. Sumit pacing in the other room, looking conflicted and tormented. It's classic cinematic language for a breakup. It's visually dynamic and emotionally manipulative. But if we believe the texts, Jenny wasn't packing her bags to leave Sumit. She was packing her bags to secure a new TLC contract. The suitcases were props. The tears were crocodile tears. And the entire heart-wrenching scene was a meticulously rehearsed piece of theater, performed by two savvy coworkers who understand the television business better than anyone. They understand that their value to the network is directly proportional to the amount of drama they can generate. For years, the drama was organic, or at least it was born from a real situation, the secret marriage and the parental disapproval. But when that well ran dry, they were faced with a choice: fade into obscurity like so many other 90-day couples, or manufacture a new crisis. They chose to manufacture. They chose to take the one thing the audience still believed in their core love for each other, the one constant that had seen them through a decade of chaos, and they sacrificed it for a renewal. They weaponized their own love story against the audience. This theory, if true, doesn't just reframe that one fight. It forces us to reevaluate their entire history on the show. Was Sumit's initial catfishing just a desperate man's attempt at love, or was it a fantastic ready-made hook for a reality show application? Was his first wife kept a secret for years out of fear, or was the reveal held back by producers for the most dramatic possible moment in season 1? Were his parents' outbursts genuine moments of cultural clash, or were they encouraged, provoked, and even directed by a production team desperate for content? How many of their seemingly endless make-or-break moments were just carefully orchestrated plot points in a long-running television series? It positions Sumit and Jenny not as a couple we've been following, but as the long-running lead actors of The Sumit and Jenny Show. They are not just participants, they are producers of their own narrative. Look at Sumit's evolution. He started as a seemingly shy, nervous call center employee. Over the years, we've seen him become more confident, more media savvy. He understands the game. He knows what the cameras want. He knows what the audience responds to. He has transformed from a reality TV subject into a reality TV professional. Jenny, too, has played her part to perfection. The long-suffering, ever-forgiving American woman, always on the verge of giving up but never quite doing it. It's a compelling character, and she has played it consistently for years. The Big Breakup was their magnum opus. It was a calculated risk. They gambled that they could sell the audience on the idea that their relationship was truly over. They knew it would create a massive cliffhanger, leaving viewers desperate to know what would happen next. Would Jenny really go back to America? Would Sumit let her go? It's the oldest trick in the television playbook, designed to get people talking, speculating, and most importantly, tuning in for the next season of Happily Ever After to see the inevitable tearful reunion. The fight wasn't the end of their story. It was a marketing campaign for the next chapter. The reckoning here is not for them, but for us, the viewers. We are the ones who have been played. We invested our time, our empathy, and our emotions into a narrative that was, according to this evidence, a complete fabrication. We argued about them online. We defended them. We criticized them. We felt Jenny's pain when she was isolated and alone. We felt Sumit's conflict as he stood between two worlds. We were active participants in their story, and our emotional investment was the currency that paid their salaries. And now we are faced with the crushing realization that it may have all been a lie. This breaks the fourth wall of reality TV in the most profound way. We all know, on some level, that the show is edited and manipulated. We know that producers prompt contestants with questions and create scenarios to elicit a response. But we hold on to a core belief that the relationships, the emotions, the fundamental stakes are real. That's the bargain we make with the show. We'll accept a little bit of manufactured drama as long as the heart of the story is authentic. What Sumit and Jenny are accused of doing shatters that bargain. They didn't just heighten a real conflict. They allegedly invented a fake one from whole cloth, using the most sacred part of their story, their potential breakup, as a bargaining chip with their corporate bosses at TLC. They didn't just manipulate a scene. They faked a season finale. This transforms them from lovers into co-workers. Their shared home is not a home. It's a film set. Their conversations are not conversations. They are dialogues. Their emotional crises are not crises. They are plot twists. They are producing a product, and the product is their relationship. And in the latest fiscal year, the product's performance was lagging. So, like any good business partners, they convened a meeting and decided on a bold new strategy to reinvigorate the brand. The final season gambit, the Big Breakup. A move designed to shock the market, generate buzz, and prove to their employers at TLC that their brand was still a valuable asset worthy of further investment. We have to ask ourselves, how many other couples are doing this? Is this an isolated case of two veterans of the franchise gaming the system they know so well? Or is this standard operating procedure? Are we watching dozens of couples perform scripted crises for a paycheck? Are the stakes ever real, or are they always just negotiating tactics for the next contract? This alleged deception by Sumit and Jenny pulls back the curtain not just on their story, but on the entire genre. It exposes the potentially rotten core of the reality TV industrial complex, where human emotion is a commodity to be packaged, marketed, and sold, and where authenticity is just another buzzword used in a pitch meeting. Think of the sheer cynicism involved. To sit down with your partner of over a decade and plot out the emotional beats of your own fabricated breakup. Okay, on Tuesday, you'll start yelling about my family. I'll counter with how much I've sacrificed. Then I'll go to the bedroom and start packing. Make sure the cameras get a good shot of me putting my passport in the bag. That will really sell it. It's the kind of cold, calculated move that is difficult to fathom. It betrays a fundamental contempt for the audience, a belief that we are so gullible that we will swallow whatever manufactured drama they feed us. And for a long time, they were right. We did. The question now is, what happens when the lie is exposed? What happens when the audience realizes their emotional investment was based on a fraud? For many, this will be the final straw. It's one thing to watch a messy, real relationship unfold. It's another thing entirely to be the willing audience for a bad soap opera masquerading as reality. This changes how we view them forever. They are no longer the unlikely couple who fought against all odds for love. They are potentially two of the most cynical actors in reality television history, who saw their relationship not as a life they were building, but as a story they were selling. And when the story got boring, they decided to write a shocking new chapter, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing but a desperate need for a renewal. The tears were fake, the fight was staged, and their heartbreak was nothing more than a business proposal. Before we delve deeper into the timeline of their potential deception and look at other moments from their past that now seem suspicious in this new light, we have to consider the implications. The network, TLC, is also a party to this. The producer's alleged reply, "Sounds great. Make it big," shows complicity. They are not passive documentarians capturing reality as it unfolds. They are active participants in creating the narrative, and in this case, they are accused of encouraging their talent to fake a life-altering crisis for the sake of entertainment. They are the ones who stand to profit the most from this deception, as it keeps a popular, long-running couple on their roster and guarantees them a dramatic storyline for an upcoming season of Happily Ever After. The entire enterprise is built on this shaky foundation, and the alleged actions of Sumit and Jenny have just exposed the fault lines for all to see. The very contract they sought to secure through this elaborate performance might be the thing that ultimately undoes their credibility, and the credibility of the show itself, forever. The gambit may have worked in the short term, but the long-term cost could be the trust of the very audience they were so desperate to keep. Let's dig even deeper. If we accept the premise that this breakup was a performance, we must then look at the aftermath. After the explosive finale aired, what happened in the real world, on their social media? For a time, there was a period of relative quiet, designed to let the cliffhanger breathe and allow audience speculation to run wild. This is a standard part of the playbook. Let the fans debate, let the YouTube channels make their prediction videos, build the anticipation for the eventual tell-all episode where some semblance of an answer will be given. But then, interesting little clues started to pop up. A reflection in Sumit's sunglasses in an Instagram post that looks suspiciously like Jenny holding the phone. A dish in the background of one of Jenny's photos that was identical to one Sumit had been pictured with a week earlier. These are the kinds of digital breadcrumbs that an audience, now recontextualized as a jury, begins to hunt for. Were these sloppy mistakes by a couple trying to maintain a facade? Or were they, in a more twisted way, part of the game itself? Little winks to the audience, designed to keep the conversation going, to stoke the flames of debate. Are they together? Are they not? The uncertainty is the product. Let's consider the tell-all episode that followed their season. These episodes are the capstone of the 90-day universe, the place where conflicts are either resolved or escalated for the next season. They are highly controlled environments. The host, Sean Robinson, lobs carefully selected questions, and the couples provide answers that are often vague and unsatisfying, perfectly calibrated to set up future storylines. If Sumit and Jenny's breakup was staged, their performance at the tell-all would have been their most important one yet. They would have to sell the pain and uncertainty, not just to the audience, but to their fellow cast members. Rewatching their segment with this theory in mind is a revelation. Notice the language they use. It's full of qualifiers and open-ended statements. We're in a tough place right now. We're trying to figure things out. I just don't know what the future holds. This is not the language of a definitive breakup. It's the language of a storyline in transition. They are deliberately leaving the door open. They are planting the seeds for a reconciliation arc. A real, painful, final breakup is often messy, angry, and full of finality. This felt like a carefully managed to be continued. They performed the role of a couple in crisis, hitting all the emotional beats, but never once did they say the words, "It is 100% over and we will never get back together." Because of course, they couldn't. The reunion was already the planned plot for the next season. This brings us to the very nature of Happily Ever After. The premise of the show itself creates an incentive for deception. The original 90-Day Fiancé has a natural narrative engine, the K1 visa. There is a 90-day clock, a clear goal, marriage, and a clear point of failure, the wedding not happening. But Happily Ever After has no such built-in structure. It follows couples after they've achieved the initial goal. To justify its existence, the show needs conflict. A happy, stable, well-adjusted married couple is the death of reality television. Therefore, the show actively seeks out and arguably creates marital strife. Couples on Happily Ever After learn very quickly that their screen time, and by extension their paycheck, is dependent on their ability to produce drama. We've seen this pattern with other long-running couples. Think of Angela and Michael, whose entire storyline for years has been a repetitive cycle of breakups and makeups, or Andre and Libby, whose conflict with the Potthast family is a reliable source of drama season after season. These couples are not just living their lives, they are fulfilling a professional obligation to be dysfunctional. Sumit and Jenny, after years in the system, would have understood this better than anyone. They saw their peaceful post-marriage life in India and knew it was a narrative dead end. Their choice was simple: adapt or be cancelled. They chose to adapt, to evolve into the kind of couple the show requires. a couple in a state of perpetual, but never quite fatal, crisis. The alleged text messages are the key that unlocks this entire puzzle. They reveal the mechanism behind the curtain. The big fight wasn't a spontaneous eruption of long-simmering tensions. It was a content creation session. The text, "We can do the big fight next week," is no different than a YouTuber saying, "I can film the unboxing video next week." It's a discussion about producing a piece of media for an audience. This revelation is so damning because it shatters the illusion of spontaneity that is the bedrock of reality TV. We know things are edited, but we want to believe the source material is real. This suggests that even the source material itself is scripted. Let's imagine the conversation that happened before that text was even sent. Sumit and Jenny, sitting in their apartment in India, perhaps after a pleasant, quiet day. The cameras are gone. They're watching TV or cooking dinner. And one of them turns to the other and says, "The producer called. They're worried we don't have a strong enough story for the finale. They're talking about cutting our screen time." And so, a brainstorming session begins. Not about their relationship, but about their show. What can we do? We've already done the parents' disapproval to death. What if we fought? A really big fight? What about? I don't know, the visa stuff, me wanting to go home? It's believable. Okay, so you'll get angry, you'll say you're done, I'll cry, I'll pack my bags. Yeah, that's good, that's big. I'll text the producer and run it by them. It's a chilling scene to imagine. Two people who ostensibly love each other, calmly and rationally planning to perform a gut-wrenching emotional trauma for a television show. It's the ultimate act of selling out, not just a brand or a product, but your own life, your own love story. It implies a level of detachment from their own reality that is truly staggering. Their life is no longer their life. It is a series of scenes to be acted out for a global audience. And their primary motivation is no longer love or happiness, but the acquisition of a contract renewal. This is the modern Faustian bargain of the reality TV star. You get fame, you get money, you get a platform. But in return, you must surrender your life to the narrative. You must be willing to twist and contort your reality to fit the demands of the show. And when your real life becomes too boring, you must be willing to invent a more exciting one. Sumit and Jenny, according to this theory, are not victims of this system. They are its master practitioners. They have learned the rules of the game and are now playing it with a level of skill and cynicism that is both impressive and deeply disturbing. They have hacked the reality TV matrix. They've realized that they are the product, and they've decided to take control of the manufacturing process. The final season gambit wasn't just a pitch for a renewal, it was a power move. It was them telling TLC, "We know what you want, and we can deliver it. Now pay us." And the network, ever hungry for drama, for ratings, for the next viral clip, allegedly responded with a simple, enthusiastic, "Make it big." It was a transaction between a content creator and a distribution platform, and the only thing that was broken in the process was the audience's trust. Let's take a step back and examine the architecture of their entire story arc, not as a romance, but as a television show. Every successful show has a pilot episode that establishes the characters, the central conflict, and the stakes. What was Sumit and Jenny's pilot? It was a catfish. We, the audience, were introduced to Jenny, a hopeful romantic, and Sumit, a young Indian man who was so compelling that she was willing to overlook the fact that he was lying about his very face. The initial deception wasn't an obstacle they overcame, it was the premise. It was the inciting incident that told us exactly what their show was about: secrets, lies, and the question of what is real and what is performance. Think about how that first season played out. The drama wasn't just about whether Jenny would forgive Sumit, it was about whether he was a good enough actor to convince her, and by extension us, that his feelings were genuine despite the initial fraud. He passed that audition. We bought it. The show got picked up for another season. So what does a show do for its second season? It raises the stakes. It introduces a bigger, more shocking twist. Enter the secret wife. This reveal was a masterstroke of reality television production. It took the established theme of deception and amplified it exponentially. It wasn't just a fake profile picture anymore. It was a whole secret life. This twist accomplished several things. It generated incredible shock value and ratings. It perfectly cast Sumit's parents, Anil and Sahna, as the series' primary antagonists. And most importantly, it created a long-term, sustainable conflict: the quest for the divorce. The divorce storyline was the narrative engine that powered their show for years. It was perfect because it had built-in mechanisms for delay and drama. There were legal proceedings, which are naturally slow. There were financial demands from his ex-wife's family, and there was the constant simmering threat of his own family's disapproval. For multiple seasons, their entire plot revolved around this singular goal. Every scene was about the divorce. Sumit would have a tense phone call about the legal fees. Jenny would express her frustration about her visa status and the ticking clock. They would have the same circular conversation over and over again. When will it be done? I'm trying. It was repetitive, yes, but it was a reliable source of content. The audience was kept on the hook by a single question. Will he ever be free to marry Jenny? But what if the delays weren't just legal? What if they were also contractual? Every season they could stretch out the divorce storyline was another season they were guaranteed a spot on the show. In the world of reality TV, a resolved problem is an ended storyline. An ongoing problem is job security. It's not a stretch to imagine producers encouraging them to play up the difficulties, to emphasize the delays, to keep that central conflict simmering for as long as humanly possible. The divorce wasn't just a legal process, it was their cash cow. Then, the inevitable happened. The divorce was finalized, the cash cow had run dry. This was the first major crisis for the Sumit and Jenny show. The central question that had driven their narrative for years was finally answered. He was free. For any normal couple, this would be a moment of pure triumph. For a reality TV couple, it was a moment of professional panic. They had reached the end of their story arc. What now? This is when the second great act of narrative manufacturing occurred. A new artificial conflict had to be invented. And so the storyline of needing his parents' permission was born. This was on its face illogical. Sumit had already defied his parents in the most profound ways imaginable. He had carried on a decade-long affair with an older American woman. He had gotten divorced, a huge taboo in his culture. He had effectively chosen Jenny over his family again and again. Why, after all of that, would he suddenly be paralyzed by the need for a blessing he knew he would never receive? It didn't make sense from a human perspective, but it made perfect sense from a production perspective. It was a way to keep the show's primary antagonists, his parents, relevant to the story. It reset the conflict. The goal was no longer divorce, it was permission. It was a new carrot to dangle in front of the audience, a new reason to keep the chase going. So we were treated to another cycle of repetitive drama. Awkward family meetings, staged therapy sessions, the bizarre intervention of an astrologer, all of it was designed to fill airtime, to create the illusion of a high-stakes conflict where, in reality, none existed. The decision was always Sumit's to make, but he, along with Jenny, chose to perform indecision, because indecision is drama, and drama is television. They were treading water, reenacting a less compelling version of their old conflict. And the audience was getting bored. The online chatter grew more and more cynical. This is so fake. Just get married already. They're just dragging this out for the show. The audience was starting to see behind the curtain. The product was failing. The secret marriage was their next move. Another secret, another planned reveal. It was a short-term solution, a way to create a dramatic climax for that particular season. The reveal to his parents was as explosive as expected, but it was also a moment of narrative finality. They had played their last card, they had disowned him. The conflict, for all intents and purposes, was over. He was married to Jenny, his parents were out of his life. End of story. This was the second and most serious professional crisis for Sumit and Jenny. They were now just a married couple, a boring, stable, married couple. The death knell for any happily ever after participant. This is the context in which we must view the alleged text messages and the final season gambit. It was not a moment of emotional crisis. It was a moment of career desperation. Their storyline had run its course. They had exhausted every possible angle of their decade-long drama. They were facing cancellation. So they did what any savvy producers would do. They conceived a bold, new direction for the show. They pitched a reboot, and the reboot was a breakup. The alleged text, "Is this enough for a happily ever after renewal?" is the Rosetta Stone for their entire career. It reveals that they see their relationship not through the lens of love, but through the lens of seasons, contracts, and renewals. Their emotional life is a commodity that they leverage in negotiations with their employer. The big fight was their deliverable. Jenny packing her bags was their proof of concept. It was a business proposal written in tears and feigned anguish. They were demonstrating their continued value to the franchise by proving they were willing to do the one thing that would guarantee a compelling next season, put their entire relationship on the line, or at least perform the illusion of doing so. Let's talk about money. We can't ignore the financial incentive, which is arguably the primary motivator here. While TLC doesn't release official salary figures, estimates based on insider reports suggest that main cast members on a spin-off like Happily Ever After can earn anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 per season, and sometimes more for the reunion specials. For a couple like Sumit and Jenny, who have been with the franchise for years, that figure is likely on the higher end. For two people, that's $30,000 or more for a few months of filming. Over several years and multiple spin-offs, we're talking about a six-figure income. They have turned their love story into a viable, long-term career. Sumit is no longer just a call center employee, and Jenny is no longer just a retiree living on Social Security. They are professional reality television personalities. It is their job. Losing the show wouldn't just mean losing fame, it would mean losing their primary source of income. Their lifestyle, their ability to live in India without traditional employment, is funded by TLC. The stakes are not just emotional, they are profoundly financial. When you look at it through this lens, the decision to stage a breakup becomes not just cynical, but pragmatic. It was a business decision designed to protect their financial future. In their minds, a few fake tears and a staged fight is a small price to pay for another $15,000 contract. They are no longer just Sumit and Jenny, they are the co-CEOs of Sumit and Jenny LLC, and the big breakup was a strategic move to prevent a hostile takeover of their primetime slot by a newer, more dramatic couple. Their performance extends beyond the television screen. It's a 24/7 job that includes the meticulous curation of their social media presence. In the immediate aftermath of the breakup finale, their online activity was a masterclass in ambiguity. They stopped posting photos together, a deliberate move to fuel speculation. Their individual posts were tinged with a vague sadness, a hint of melancholy that was just enough to keep the narrative alive. Then, as time went on, the accidental clues started appearing, the ones we discussed earlier. These aren't mistakes. In the highly controlled world of reality TV, there are no accidents. These were likely calculated leaks, designed to create a secondary wave of buzz. They keep the audience engaged during the off-season, making them feel like detectives piecing together the truth. It's all part of the game. It ensures that when the new season is announced, the audience is already primed, already invested in seeing how the mystery of their relationship status is resolved. This level of manipulation suggests a deep understanding of not just television production, but of audience psychology. They know that a straightforward story is a boring story. They know that mystery, conflict, and the constant question of what if are what keeps people watching. They have learned to feed the content machine not just with their lives, but with the speculation surrounding their lives. They are playing a multi-platform game, and they are playing it with expert precision. The problem is that this game has a victim, the audience. We, the viewers, are not in on the joke. We are the target of the deception. The show is sold to us as reality. The very name of the genre promises a degree of authenticity. We are prompted to have real emotional responses to what we see. We feel sympathy for Jenny's loneliness. We feel frustration at Sumit's indecisiveness. We root for them, we get angry at them, we invest a part of ourselves in their journey. And the discovery, or even the strong suspicion, that it has all been a lie feels like a profound betrayal. It's like finding out a trusted friend has been lying to you for years. It doesn't just make you question them, it makes you question your own judgment for ever believing them. This alleged deception by Sumit and Jenny poisons the well for the entire franchise. If they are faking their biggest moments, who else is? Is Angela's rage real? Or is it a performance she dials up for the cameras because she knows it gets her screen time? Is the family Libby's endless drama genuine animosity? Or a mutually beneficial business arrangement where everyone gets a paycheck in exchange for screaming at each other on cue? How much of what we are watching is real human interaction, and how much is a low-budget, improvised soap opera performed by a cast of contract players? This case pulls back the curtain on the producer's role in all of this. The alleged text from the producer, "Sounds great, make it big," is the voice of the entire industry. It's a system that doesn't just passively observe dysfunction, it actively incentivizes and encourages it. Producers are not journalists, they are storytellers. And if the real story is too boring, their job is to help the cast create a better one. They might not hand them a script, but they can ask leading questions, create stressful situations, and reward dramatic behavior with more camera time and ultimately contract renewals. They are the puppet masters, and couples like Sumit and Jenny are the willing puppets, so skilled that they've now learned to pull their own strings. So let's put all the pieces together. We have a couple with a history of deception built into the very foundation of their story. We have a narrative that has reached its natural conclusion, creating a professional crisis for the couple. We have a clear financial motive to invent a new conflict to secure their employment. We have leaked text messages that allegedly show them plotting this very invention and pitching it to their producer as a business proposal. We have a performance on the show that perfectly aligns with this alleged plan. And we have a social media presence that continues the game, keeping the audience hooked. The evidence, while circumstantial, paints a picture that is as compelling as it is damning. The reckoning is this: we, the audience, have been conned. We have been emotionally manipulated for profit. Sumit and Jenny's love story, once a quirky and compelling tale of cross-cultural romance, has been revealed to be a hollow brand, a product to be sold. Their tears are not tears of heartbreak. They are a marketing expense. Their fights are not moments of crisis. They are content strategy sessions. They are not lovers struggling against the odds. They are savvy coworkers, producing a long-running show about their own lives. And they were willing to fake the end of their own story just to ensure that the show would go on. Their heartbreak was a business meeting. Their pain was a performance. And their happily ever after is contingent on a contract renewal. Have you finally had enough of the lies? Has this completely changed the way you will watch them and the rest of the franchise from now on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear if you feel as betrayed as we do. Share this video if you believe the audience deserves better. And if you think it's time for TLC to stop selling us fiction and finally come clean about how much of their reality is just a well-rehearsed lie.